Welcome to another episode of the Mojo Diaries, a podcast about people who at some point in life had to pause, reset, and rediscover what truly matters. Today's guest is someone I know and have admired for many years, Sriram Iyer. Sriram's journey is fascinating because most people spend their lives building one identity. He has successfully built several. A chartered accountant by training, he went on to build a distinguished career in consulting and business leaderships, eventually becoming the MD at Accenture. But his story doesn't stop here. He is also an accomplished author whose books have been adapted into successful stage productions, proving that creativity and business can coexist in the same life. Today, I want to explore not just the milestones, but the lessons, choices, reinventions, and insights that shaped that journey. Sriram, welcome to the Mojo Diaries.
Thank you, Ram, and I look forward to an engaging conversation with you.
Sure. I know you've had a successful corporate career, so kind of let's go back to the beginning. And if I were to meet that a 25-year-old Sriram, who's just about finished college, who would you have believed success looked like? What was success at that point, and what would be that accomplishment of a successful life?
Sure. So I, like many people like me, was a product of a middle class South Indian family from Mumbai, Ghatkopar, Garudian Nagar to be specific. And so a lot of my upbringing and the things that I gave importance to was based on direction that I got from the family. So in some sense, success was also what they thought was success, and I unquestioningly decided would be success. Not that there's anything wrong with it, but it was work hard, study hard, because in some sense, if you want to have a dignified life, education and taking a job is perhaps the easiest way of doing it, as opposed to being a cricketer or a sports person or a musician. And so every milestone that success had, or every milestone that in some way defined success, was related to graduating at the right time, finding the right kind of position, rising up in the organization, having a secure job, getting married at the right time, and just progressing in my career. So that was how I defined success, as good or bad as it may sound.
Sure. So now that we have gone past that into many years, how different is that from how you define success today?
Yeah, it's a very interesting question because I mean, if I had to put it in one sentence, I would probably say success is living life on your terms, and in some sense, you're the only one who controls what your terms mean, and that helps at several levels. It helps you stay focused on yourself and not let other people decide what success is for you. So over a period of time, that epiphanic moment did not happen in one day. It just happened gradually over a period of time, as I dealt with my share of successes and failures, on how I could take all this and develop a level of happiness.
Exactly. I mean, very interesting. All right. So now let's talk about a little bit about career planning, right? Which we've all gone through, or the myth of career planning. Looking back, how much of your career was carefully planned, and how much happened because you were willing to say yes to opportunities that came your way?
Um, I'm speaking for myself, and I'll also project what I believe typically happens. A lot of people define career based on looking at the rearview mirror. Things happen, you go through life, and then people find a way of trying to make everything appear contiguous. There are very few people, again, according to me, who start with an aspiration for a career and work through it all their life. And these are specialists like doctors, academicians, etc. But for a lot of us who are business support people, our career is defined by opportunities, luck, where we are, whether we are at the right place or right time. So I would say my career has been more some decisions that I explicitly took, and some incidents that happened in life that decided the course of my life. So not planned, but if you ask me today, I can always give reasons for everything I did. At that point in time, perhaps I would not have been able to.
So is it realistic to ask then, do we overestimate planning and underestimate adaptability?
I think so because uh, there are many things in life that are not under your control. We start our lives believing that there is cause and effect. You do this, and this will happen. In reality, that doesn't necessarily happen. It's about being able to take whatever comes your way, on your chin when you have to, and in some way benefiting from it when you get the opportunity. So adapting is important because you have to keep looking ahead, especially in today's world where things are so fluid that nobody can take their qualifications, their experience, or anything for granted. Things are just changing all the time, even at work.
I think excellent point, something for all of us to learn. Now, when you go back and see, every successful career comes with sacrifices that aren't visible from the outside. What did success cost you that people don't usually see?
So, first, let me tell you how I define success. And I think I'm going to abstract it and make it more of a general comment. Success can be viewed from two lenses: how you view your own success and how you think others are viewing your success.
Hmm.
The latter is very dangerous because
Sure.
it's a moving, it's moving all the time. And then what happens is you can't even enjoy your success because you're always aspiring for something else. With that, I just want to make one more point about success, and that is that every one of us has been, dealt with a pack of cards, or what we come into the world with, and that's different for each person. And so in some sense, you're the only person who can decide whether you're successful or not. To analogize, um, I think that a person who after graduation becomes a manager in 2 years and a person who becomes a manager in 10 years can feel equally successful because of what they had to struggle with to get to where they are. I thought it was very important for me to mention that because people look at success without looking at the individual. Now, coming to your specific question on the price of success, or what it has cost, um, to me, the single most important thing you have in your life is time. And anytime you go chasing some idea of success that you may have or others may have for you, there is time that is going by. And so there is an opportunity for self development that may or may not happen. So, the people, for example, who are maniacally focused with their careers, I would probably encourage them to look at the self development part, to build a
Mm.
hobby or to get to something that has meaning for them and them only. So that's the part where I would say the cost comes. You go through a career, the people, your kids grow up, or in my case, my kid grows up, a lot of things happen, and before you know it, um, you have certain successes the way the world sees it, but there is all the time that has passed where people have grown up and left. So time is the biggest thing that I would say has been what suffered in the process of chasing success.
I think a couple of things. One is a bulb on moment when you said success is what you define it, not what others see. I think so many of us are confused and let our emotions run by thinking that somebody may or may not see us successful, and that is so apt. And the other one, of course, is time. Whatever it is, how are you spending it? Because that's not going to come. You can always make up for a lot of other things, but time you can't make up. So, a great point. Uh, Another very interesting part that I've seen with you is many people become successful in one field, right? And they stay there. But you have successfully evolved through multiple chapters, right? So in your case, what has allowed you to keep reinventing yourself, across either professionally or through writing? How do you make that time? Or is it always there and some people don't see it? Or what has been your mantra?
Yeah, so I think I was very lucky to have the kind of friends I had who very early on encouraged me to write, and then uh, my spouse as well uh, told me that if this is something that you're passionate about, go ahead and do it. And so at some point, maybe in the early 2000s, I started writing, and there I was probably more in the middle of my career, closer to 40 and a good 20 years of my career remaining. What writing did for me is it gave me a vehicle to express myself. And then I was able to move away from the successes of the organization that not always are under your control. And I had
Mhm.
something for myself. What it also did is, since I write about people, um, you know, even the people who I work with became for me elements that I could look at from a different lens. And in that sense, life became much easier. So the point I want to underscore is having a hobby doesn't need to be writing. It needs to be something that gives you great amount of satisfaction. And when that happens, and when you can see that life is beyond just one thing that you do at work, you end up becoming that much more capable of looking at even your profession in different ways. For example, I did, from being a finance person for the longest part of my career, spend some time in sales. Now, most finance people never become salespeople, but I think my writing and my ability to express myself in a medium like the written medium gave me the courage to go and try something which was completely at odds with my personality of being a state finance person. So the reinventing bit naturally happened as I got into writing and was willing to hold myself out there with my opinions on things, albeit in fiction.
Hmm. I think you kind of jumped into the part about how beautifully you moved from a career in finance to writing. But then that didn't stop there, right? Then from writing to it moved to books to plays, and sending your words from a book into a live stage production must have been a very different experience. Writing a book is very personal, but now make that into a play, and now you're, looking at other people enacting and bring this to life. How was that experience? And was that, did you even think about it when you're writing the books, or that also kind of evolved? How did that happen?
I think the getting into plays was almost a bit of serendipity. I was not necessarily looking to become a theater person, and then I met up with Prakash Bilavadi, who liked some of the things that I'd written about. To your point on writing a book and writing for theater being different, that's absolutely the case. Because when you write a story or you write even non-fiction, you're writing to be read, whereas in theater you're writing to be heard, and the
Mm,
two are very different. There is no, there's no playback that you can do in a theater. So the entire process of rediscovering what it is to write for theater was an interesting one, and I got a lot of help from the people on the stage side who essentially helped me write for stage from a medium of writing really for myself, and then people reading and drawing whatever conclusions they wanted. So extremely interesting. Without the help of the other people, the directors, the actors, etc., I don't think I would have been able to make the shift that easily. I would say that it's been among the most enjoyable parts of my life, and I hope I can continue doing that for as long as I can continue to think and breathe.
wow. So this journey about writing and play, and plays, that whole storytelling, what did that teach you about people?
So, you know, the one thing that I learned, and this has been told to me by a bunch of close friends and acquaintances as well, that I have the ability to see where you see a person being uh, other than ordinary. Even the most commonplace of things can appear extreme depending on how you write it. So the moment you start looking at people from the lens of trying to identify their quirkiness, every person becomes a subject, and you end up actually being much more engaged with them. It helps you professionally because you're listening to them much better. It also helps you personally because you see that there is a story that every one of us has. Some of
Mhm.
us like some of us like you and me desire to write it. But I think every person has a story, and in a perfect world, everybody would write about themselves because there is so much that happens in people's lives that needs exploring and being told to others about.
Uh, let's come to the human aspect of Sriram, right? Your family has seen various versions of you, the CA, the consultant, the business leader, author, playwright. Which version of Sriram would they say is the easiest to live with?
None. Meaning it's a family. So if I have to be completely honest, uh, so like many people who reach a point where they retire and think about other things to do, uh, I'm being a little facetious, but they would rather see me at work and not spending so many hours here. I think I think I got to where I did also because of tremendous family support. So, while trying to be facetious or trying to be humorous about it, I don't want to lose sight of the fact that there's been a tremendous amount of support that I've got uh, to be able to write, manage my career, and have most things in life go well. So I have to acknowledge that without all these things falling in place, I would not have had the opportunity to self-actualize. And keeping the profession aside, the writing bit has done a lot to make me feel good about myself.
So now, I mean, this is one thing that we are both passionate about. So no interview with you can be complete without this question, right? And it's a cricket question, but not taking the usual route of what do you think about this, and then we can have multiple hours on that. If you were to borrow one quality from any cricketer and apply it to the life that you would want to be, who would that be, and what would be that quality?
If I would think about maybe Rahul Dravid and the ability to stay uh, focused and not let success um, get the better of him and stay the way he is, regardless of the situation he is in. In fact, there's a quote that is attributed to Rahul Dravid, and given the amount of stuff that we read on the web, I'm not sure he said it. It just sounded very impressive. The quote was that when somebody asked him, "How good a batsman are you?" he said, "I'm not as good as you think I'm on my best day, and not as bad as you think I'm on my worst day. It's somewhere in between." And I actually think that that can be taken and abstracted to everything in life.
Oh, absolutely.
So, so I just think the other thing I'd say about cricket, which is a game, is life too. In some ways, is a game. And when I think about all the successes that people have achieved there, and then to have to go to something where they're playing more from the background, from the stadium, and not being, inside the playing ground, you realize the importance of being able to think about not just what is today, but what's likely to come in future. And many of them have done it very successfully. So there are lessons to be learnt on being in the limelight and then slowly moving away from it as well. And many of them, at least from whatever we can see, have done it beautifully.
And so, if you, having admired this quality, have you consciously tried to practice that quality in your own life?
You know, saying yes would make it sound odd. I think we are all what we are. We have
Sure.
our family and our close friends to make sure that we don't get ahead of ourselves. So, in some sense, I've just been very fortunate to have uh, many friends who've been friends for over several decades, and staying closely in touch with them and interacting with them make sure that I never get ahead of myself. By myself, I don't know if I'll be able to do it, but there are enough people to pull me down when I get ahead of myself. So
Yeah,
I think I'm good.
true. That's how life is, right? I mean, always gives you the reality check. Um, just moving on a little bit, like life beyond titles, right? A lot of people spend decades building their careers, and now you having done that, what advice would you give someone approaching that stage where titles and positions matter less, and the question becomes, what comes next?
This is not meant to be you scratch my back, I scratch my back, but I would tell them to read your book to start with. But on a more serious note, I think uh, for a lot of people, their identity is very closely linked to what they're doing at work. The titles, the corner office, the everything that you're talking about. And it would be unrealistic to expect that overnight they're going to be able to just move away from it and cut off to something else. So the advice I would start with is to tell them that that is going to kind of end at some point, either naturally or not naturally, because we are in a very different place in this world. And so the question is about how to stay relevant. And that involves a bunch of things, including, whether you have enough money, what's your family situation like. But more importantly, how are you going to spend the vacuum which you're going to have because you're not working? And that's a challenge that requires planning both before the event happens and during, when you have moved into that phase. For myself, I've tried to enroll for some leadership coaching. I'm
Hmm.
involved with an NGO. I continue writing, and I
Wow.
try to make sure that, at least for a few hours in a day, I'm operating like I would operate during my working days. That gives me a sense of meaning, and it does not feel like the rug has been pulled out from under my feet. The important thing for all of us to remember is, in the normal course of things, lifespans are increasing. And so if you start living a life where you feel retired, you run the risk of falling ill because of not having things to do. So that's something that I would urge people to do. The other point I would try to make, which is based on personal experiences, that once you get off the role at work, the people who call you from work are going to be very, very few in number. And
Sure.
regardless of however much other people tell you that, you have to personally experience it to realize it. And it's not like feeling like a victim, because don't forget, you did the same thing when people went out of work. So in that sense, it's just about acceptance.
Yeah, and it's a pretty, that's going to happen when it happens to you. It is a very big moment. So, Sriram, coming to my signature question in these episodes, right? If you could write a short letter to Sriram about 15 or 20 years ago, what would you want him to know?
Well, for one thing, uh, I would want them to know that it's pretty important in life to decide on your own goals, right? And they have to be for you, they cannot be somebody else's goal for you. The second thing is, celebrate every success, because there aren't that many in number, and they're all certain milestones. And the third thing that I would probably tell him is, um, to be more positive than I was. Right? I
Hmm.
approached life to a certain extent for a long time, being cynical about things around me. And cynicism, in some sense, prevents you from giving the best account of yourself.
Yep.
By
Yes.
being positive, you will certainly go wrong. Life is difficult, life is tough, and you will have your bad moments, but you'll also give your best. I realized the importance of being positive probably a little later in my career than I should have, and that resulted in a little bit of transformation in my attitude and what I think I ended up doing for myself and others. So these are three things I would kind of call out, just so that, armed with that, hopefully he would make his journey a little easier.
Um, Absolutely agree with you, having gone through that phase, and there are some absolute golden nuggets for anybody listening to this. Um, the final Mojo question, Sriram. For someone listening today who feels stuck or uncertain or afraid to start a new chapter in life, what's one small step they can take tomorrow morning?
I would say that life is a game, and it needs to be played. And unless you try, you're not going to find out. The first time I lifted a pen and thought I could write a story, the idea that somebody would find it worth reading was not what motivated me. I just wanted to give the best account of myself. So it's about inner confidence, and it's about realizing that all of us have abilities more than we think we have. And
Yes.
the moment we try, we are held back by ourselves. I mean, that's the real point I want to make. And
Yeah.
if we can step away from that, I agree it's not easy, because there's years of indoctrination, there's years of conditioning that we put on ourselves, and to step away from it is not easy, but it's definitely not impossible. So if you just tell yourself that you can do it, you will get somewhere.
Fantastic. Sriram, thank you for sharing your journey so openly. There are so many lessons here, so many small nuggets people can take, so wonderfully articulated about growth, reinvention, creativity, purpose. And to everyone listening, thank you for being part of the Mojo Diaries. If this conversation stayed with you, do share it with someone who might need it. See you in the next one.
Thank you very much, Ram. Really enjoyed it. Thanks a lot.